This is Josh.
This is Fernando.
Chloe, Lily,
Michael.
Paige. All right, and we decided to make a podcast called The Canceled Podcast, and our thesis is through a feminist lens, the treatment of canceled influencers and public figures reveals how mainstream media became a modern tool for enforcing cultural expectations about power and compliance while covering the broader topics of militarism, capitalism, and nationalism.
So I want to break into patriarchy, looking at it through the lens of a famous artist. Her name is Megan Thee Stallion, and she was actually shot by another famous artist named Tory Lanez, and he was convicted for the crime. But when she went to speak out about it, she got a lot of backlash for it, which kind of shows how when women try to speak out about their problems, they can get shut out by men in power.
Typically, the big corporations and media is led by the men in power, kind of just in the big offices. They're controlling what people consume. So I feel like patriarchy is seen in this way where we're controlling what the narrative is for the public. And if it's seen as hurting the image that the men in power are trying to uphold, then um, we're going to see some unethical things happen where even if it was Megan Thee Stallion who was the victim and should be taken care of, if it affects the image of the men, then it's probably just going to get overruled. So
This is definitely something that relates to patriarchy, as women are often dismissed. This has been seen in like every context. So this could be a medical context, in sports, such as Simone Biles when she dropped out of the Olympics, and then her feelings were dismissed because it was like letting down um, her country.
I want to add to that idea too. Aside from just like the capital aspect of our country, we are a very competitive nation.
Yeah.
And what that means is we have a very strong reputation across the globe. And when we're seen as weak in anything, obviously a sign of weakness is not something that like we take lightly. So with a weak economy, we start to focus on other things that we should be winning in, such as like we also have an amazing sports program. The U.S. Olympics has won insane amounts of gold medals. So
The most.
the most gold medals. We have a very strong reputation that we have to uphold. So it leads into nationalism, in my opinion, because
Yeah, definitely.
we're very patriotic, and when we're losing in something, we feel the need to
one up everybody else.
Yeah, even at the expense of our own athletes, just because we have such a strong reputation to uphold.
Sports was nationalism, where it was like events like the Olympics show patriotism as athletes become symbols of their country. Winning makes the nation feel proud, and losing could feel like a failure. U.S. Olympics flags, national anthem, and medal ceremonies show how nationalism is tied into sports and demonstrates national unity as a team and like rooting for an athlete. And then Paige's slide was talking about how when Simone Biles dropped out for her own mental health, it was seen as she was like failing her country, and how that relates to like nationalism.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, can we talk about the Epstein files?
Yeah, definitely. Go ahead.
Can we talk about kind of how there's so many celebrities that were basically related to this, and like everything they did completely wrong were basically thrown under like the rug, and like they kind of got immunity for it.
Yeah,
I think it also relates back to Diddy did the same thing.
that's a good point.
Diddy did the same thing, and that was even like the Epstein files are old. Like that's old news in our at least for our generation. And it's like Diddy did the same thing, and we don't know. We like they don't tell us enough information for us to. It's not like that we don't care about it. It's just like in our eyes, it's like a whole nother world.
Yeah. I feel like you can look at this from like almost like a systematic issue, and like in the sense of like governance, because like like we can only make our own judgments of these situations through the information we're dealt, but like people in power and like people behind the scenes, and like there's a lot of stuff getting withdrawn and like that we're not hearing about. So when we have to make a judgment about certain situations, we have maybe 10% of the knowledge that these people are like covering up, and like I feel like that's a huge like systematic issue.
Yeah, I agree. Going off that systematic issue part of it, a lot of these people that were involved in the Epstein files, they're significant pop culture figures. And what that means is these people hold reputations that are very valuable to social media, brands, big businesses, corporations. So if we see all these people just suddenly vanish, I think these brands will suffer, and more importantly, businesses will lose money. And because the U.S. is a very capitalist-driven country, I feel like that overrides like the ethics and like morality behind what we should do. So we're not gonna get rid of all these people for doing bad things. Instead, we're just gonna throw it under the rug because it can affect our economy. And I think that's just ridiculous.
It's just like a pass. It's just like a free pass.
Yeah.
That's a really good point because a lot of brands are always looking to do like partnerships, like Dunkin' with Charlie D'Amelio, who's a very, very famous dancer and TikToker who had like a big impact. She had a bunch of Super Bowl commercials, and she was making so much money. And then these companies are making so much money because they partnered with her. And so this is seen in so many other times. A lot of big companies choose to work with big influencers or people who have a lot of power and money, like even like Sabrina Carpenter. Like a lot of brands choose to work with these people. However, they don't just stop these connections because then, as Fern was saying, then they would lose that money, and we're a very capitalist country. So then again, because we are very capitalist, it's very specific as to what information the public is given about these types of scandals. And so we can only make judgments off of that little information that we are given. And this is very purposeful to protect these public figures, which is why they have this type of immunity, because then businesses can continue working with these people despite the things they have done. Because if they stop working with people, then like everyone loses money, and we thrive off of like money, and the US always wants to be seen as like a good economy, etc.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So during the Super Bowl, with Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake, Janet Jackson showed an inappropriate part of herself on accident, and everyone was fully convinced that she either did it on purpose for attention, or it was just completely entirely her fault. And she, even though it was a wardrobe malfunction, which has nothing to do with her, because she's a singer, a songwriter, an actress, and a dancer, Janet Jackson got pretty much completely canceled. She faced severe public backlash, media. CBS and MTV were fined, and her music video was blacklisted. Her music was blacklisted from the radio and MTV for months, and her career significantly was affected.
That's crazy how like something that was completely out of her control, like it was a wardrobe malfunction that she couldn't control, and then the public viewed it as she was doing it on purpose to get attention. It shows how all the blame was placed on her when it could have been a malfunction with the way the costume was put on, the way it was adjusted, a zipper, anything like that. But the blame was put on her, and it was automatically assumed that she was attention seeking and purposely did it. And it's crazy how much that impacted her career. These athletes become symbols of their country. And so this also relates to like Simone Biles, when she dropped out of the Olympics for her mental health. The entire world, like our entire country, was kind of like criticizing her, and it was almost like she was like failing our country, but she was stepping aside for her mental health. And
she had there was a whole team.
What were you saying? Like it was like an actual like.
Yeah, it was like an actual thing. Yeah, it's like the twisties, basically. Like, I'll say this as a diver, like we do a lot of tricks where we twist, and like if you do it for more than an hour and a half, like you get the twisties, and you literally cannot twist. Otherwise, like
you can injure
you get lost. You literally get lost.
You get lost in like the air, and like don't know up from down, and
It's,
like these tricks are really dangerous. That she could have like hurt herself, even become paralyzed.
But like the team, like all the other people that were on the team, pretty much got shot down for the amount of work that they put in. Even though we got silver that year, we placed, and it's not just her. Like all those people were representing the United States, and because the just one person that was the most famous or the most known couldn't do it because of mental health issues, but also like a serious spin issue, the entire team was let down the United States of America pretty much.
And the media really portrayed the situation that
Yeah.
it was Simone Biles' fault and she let down the
And then
entire
she was
USA.
like failing the
Yeah.
country.
She failed the country, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was portrayed in this bad light simply just
And it also for her just being a person.
Right.
And it's also like it's all controlled by the social media aspect. When it comes down to Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson, there was no social media when Michael Jackson was around because trust me, he'd be on the news all the time.
Yeah.
But Janet Jackson made a mistake and it had nothing to do with even her. But what the media chose to show is what everyone was deciding to go with. And they didn't even show the performance, they just showed her incident. So it's like it all just goes back to the social media aspect of it too.
Just kind of piggybacking off of it, kind of how we're on the topic of how women who are prominent in their industry or whatnot, and how when they have some kind of malfunction, then they are put on the spotlight in a bad narrative. But men who do similar things in a similar industry are put in a spotlight not in the same way. So if we look at Travis Scott, just some background, he's a pretty famous rapper, producer, songwriter, and entrepreneur. And in his Astroworld concert, and during his Astroworld concert, there was a huge disaster where the crowd got uncontrolled and it ended up resulting in several casualties and several injuries. And I think this is a perfect example of how patriarchy gives powerful men more protection, more excuses, and fewer consequences. And in this case, Travis Scott held enormous cultural influence. He controlled the crowd, the environment, the tone of the show, and the expectations to his fans. The event design was built around his persona as a dominant figure who encourages extreme energy and chaos, which puts him in a position of authority. So I think from that we can really see how men in similar positions as women often are seen in a different light.
Yeah, like go ahead.
And even when when Astroworld happened, like days after, like it was all over the news, everybody was talking about it, and then it just kind of went silent. And then this past year, documentary. When did that happen? Astroworld.
Like was it 2018 probably?
Yeah,
2019?
it was before
2019.
COVID. It was before COVID. So everyone was talking about it for what, maybe like a week, and then
The apology video.
he made an apology video. And
that's another thing. That apology video was horrible.
But he was so easily forgiven.
It was a video of him.
It was a terrible tragedy. People got trampled.
Yeah, people died.
People got severely hurt and died. People had like trauma from this. Yeah. And he made a horrible video and was so easily forgiven.
It became a joke online. That's how bad the video was, and he's
still fine.
Yeah. Didn't he also not take accountability for
He didn't take accountability for any of it. And then a documentary came out this past year laying out everything that he did wrong leading up to it, with it coming out, where the stages were set up, how people had to entrance and exit, the lines waiting. Like it was fully on camera, all of it. And the documentary came out and he still got no heat for it. And that happened this past year.
And that honestly reminds me of a similar situation where Chris Brown, he committed a crime, tragedy, but was so easily forgiven too, because these public figures, they're making money. They're male figures who are making money and contributing to the industry. So Chris Brown was an American singer and songwriter, and in 2009, he was arrested and charged with felony assault and making criminal threats after physically attacking his then girlfriend Rihanna after a pre-Grammy Awards party. And he pleaded guilty to a felony and was sentenced to 5 years on probation, community service, and violence counseling. But he so quickly returned back to the music industry, and he was releasing hit albums and continuing to perform at huge major events. And so it really highlights how the music industry, like militarized culture, is built on hierarchies that protect the power. So Astroworld, he was not held accountable. He was protected in that sense. And same as Chris Brown, he was protected. He still has his fame. He still has hit albums out, and they're still able to continue to participate and perform at these major events, even after committing really bad crimes and hurting a lot of people. And so this shows how media institutions forgive male violence when it's profitable to them, and fans are encouraged to separate the art from the artist. So it's kind of a way that normalizes the harm and forgives and doesn't hold accountability to these people.
We see a very common theme of men who are in power, who who are very well respected in their industry, when they go and they do something vile, they're
Mhm.
simply just not treated the exact same way as their female counterparts.